So I want you to Google free high resolution textures or just free high res textures and find sites like this. So this one is free stock textures. There's also sites that'll come up where you have to log in and have a membership and they try to get you to buy credits and stuff, and maybe they have nicer photos on there for you to work with. You can do that, of course, too if you want to, but there are also sites like this where they're free. And type in what you want. So I'm going to work with like a brick wall kind of texture to do a demo. So you don't have to choose that. You can choose like a ground texture or a different kind of wall or something else that you want to make a seamless texture out of. They're mostly all kind of like straight on and like evenly lit on a site like this because they know that people are using them for texturing 3D models. So I don't have to tell you that. That's already what you're going to find. So I'm going to use some like this. And if you can find more than one photograph that's similar, it could be used together, different parts of each one into the same photograph. Grab them both. That'll be very helpful. Like I think these are, nope, that's the same one there. But if you can find two, definitely grab them both. If the coloration is a little bit different, we'll be able to fix that. So here's the ones that I grabbed. Oh, I'll open that one and I'll just look and see where the other one is. Actually, I don't think this is one of the ones I'm going to use. So here's mine. And I'm going to make the canvas a bit bigger here. Actually, I'll just, if you want to ever go back to how it was when you opened it, you can just click to the top of the history and it'll just go back to when you opened it. I'm going to first duplicate that and then I'll go Control or Backspace Alt. And I'll actually go Control Alt because I don't want to make the background yellow. I just want to make it white. And white is the background color over here. So it's either Backspace Alt or Control Alt, and you're able to fill any layer in with the colors that you have selected over here. Okay, so I'm going to make that canvas bigger with the crop tool. So you can see this is only the size that the photograph was, and then we have this extra big background. And I'll just put another layer under there. I don't even really want a background that is filled with white or black or anything like that. When you press V, you get the move tool. You can like move things around, like any content on any layer with the move tool. Very common tool in Photoshop. Okay. So I want to take a perfect square shape of this at one of the typical texture resolution sizes. So I'm going to use this rectangular marquee here. And let me just see, I have it set so that it's fixed size and it's like 300 pixels right now. So I'm just going to make this I'll do like 1024 and just see how big that is. So I want it both for the width and the height, and then it's only going to let me draw that size. So this is pretty big. It's closer to a 2048, so I'm going to change this. Yeah, so it's closer to this size. So now I've got a new layer that's like a perfect square shape. So before I go any further to start the seamless texture, I want to match the color of the two different files because I'm going to use pieces from this other file here as well. So I'll turn off the texture shaped one and I'll just grab this one and drag it over here. And I don't want to work with this layer. Like I'm primarily working with that in the file where I'm going to make the seamless texture, and I just want to make sure that there isn't really much difference in the color of the two files. So this one looks like a little more desaturated and gray and stuff. They're very close though. But I want to work with that one that's different, right? So, and that's the bottom layer. So I have to have the bottom layer selected, and then I will go to Image Adjustments and I'll go to Match Color. And there are definitely lots of other ways to adjust colors. This is a very automatic way. This won't always work for you, but it's okay for like this kind of job right now, like matching two photographs together that we're going to texture from that are already quite similar. So you have to tell it what you want to do. So what is this one? This is the name of the file we're in. So you have to tell it what file you want to do the matching in, and then you have to tell it what layer you're on, the layer that we're on, or the layer that we want to match to is, that's what we select here. The layer that we're just on in the file is the layer that's going to be changed, and the layer that we want to match the color to is the one that we select here. So you can see the layer on the background in the file that we wanted to change, it just changed when I selected the layer that I had dropped on there. And I'm going to just leave alone these color intensity and luminance values. And the fade, that just makes the match effect, it'll decrease it. So if you feel it was too strong, you can turn that up. I think maybe I'll turn it up a tiny bit. Nah, I feel like it's okay. This would remove a color cast if there's a color cast on there that you feel is too strong, but I'm just going to leave that alone. I think that it's fine, so I'll just say okay. And I'm going to throw this away now, and I will just, I'll save this file so I can bring it back when I need it. So I'm just going to show you quickly on this texture, sort of the feature that is what we're going to focus on using to make the seamless texture. So you go to Filter, Other, Offset, and then if you put 50% in here and 50% in here. Oh, this actually is a seamless texture, so I'm just going to grab something that isn't a seamless texture. I'll just grab one of these photos again. And I just made the perfectly square marquee, and I'm just going to double click, or I'm going to click with the prop tool, hit enter, and then that's a square, right? So I'm going to go back to that filter, offset, or filter, other, offset, and the settings are still there from before, so I'm going to say okay. And should be able to see texture seams in here. They're right, for some reason they are at the corner. They're not really, it isn't really offset by 50%. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. Oh, it's 50 pixels. So I'm going to say, it's not percent, it's pixels. So I'm going to say 1024. Because that's 50%. That's like half. Okay, so you can see what happens with this function. You're actually just moving the texture over, so you can see like where the seams would be, right? And you can work on getting rid of them. So you'll see tutorials online showing you this very standard old-fashioned way. I mean, it's not old-fashioned to use this function, but there are other new tools that you can use with it so that the job goes much more smoothly. What you used to have to do like a decade ago is or longer than that, when I had gone to school, you would have to use tools to like work on this to make it seamless, and then every time you wanted to check how it would look, then you have to go, well, you have to like put the offset back so it's where it should be, right? And then you have to go to define pattern, and then you have to make a new file that's really big. And then you have to, I won't do it right now, but I'll just explain, because you shouldn't do it this way if you are looking at tutorials online that still tell you to do it this way. And then when you have a very large sized file, then you fill it. When you go to fill and you go to pattern inside fill, like, anyways, after you define pattern, they store them in here. So then you will choose one of these to fill it with. Like, for instance, this is a pretty big size file, and this is a small one that I saved here. So there, I filled this big file with this pattern, right? And actually, this is a seamless texture, but this is something that you have to watch out for. And don't worry, you don't have to like go through those steps to like fill it every time you want to check if how the seamless texture is repeating. There's a quicker way to do it. I'll show you in a minute, but yeah, if you look at this up close, it's not so bad, right? Like if you saw this in a game from far away and it was repeated that many times on a wall, it looks terrible, even though it is seamless, but it just looks like it looks so CG, right? It just looks so fake. Like, obviously it's been repeated because you can see this big pattern. But if you look at the same texture and it was just sort of like on a wall and it's like repeating in one direction, and it's like it's a large sized texture, and it's not repeating vertically, it's just repeating horizontally, and your character is running along some chamber with a rock wall. It's not as bad, but I'd still really notice that there's a pattern here, so I wouldn't use this in my artwork. Even though if you look online for seamless textures already made, this is supposed to be a good seamless texture somebody made, but it's not something that I would use. Like, it looks too obviously like it's repeating for me. So you have to think about that, right? Like, the thing that makes it look like it's repeating is when there's like these big shifts in value. Like, if you look at this from far away, like there's these sort of general overall big shifts. Like, there's this obvious dark patch here, and like this really obvious light patch here, and you can't really get away with that if you're going to repeat it like many times like this. I'll show you another example where you can get away with it repeated a lot like this. So I'm just going to close this one. So we have this. This is another one you could just find online, repeating seamless texture. And this one is much smaller. Or it can be like it can be tiled at a small scale and look fine. That's what I mean when I say small scale tiling. It can be used at a very small texture size and tiled all over a large wall, many times vertically and horizontally, and you don't really notice it, right? Like, I can sort of notice there's these stripes here, but it's not that bad. And like, I don't see, maybe if this is like a ground texture, probably it would be on the ground. Like, you wouldn't be looking at it that big anyways. You'd probably have it like this or something, right? And it looks absolutely fine. So you have to kind of think before you make the seamless texture, like, what are you using it for? And then you can get away with like a more like a value pattern that has some obvious dark parts and like light parts, in a very like the rock texture was that I showed you. Sometimes you can have something that's a repeating texture that has high contrast, but it's something like this. Like this is going to look fine. Like if it's just a graphical pattern, right? And it'll tile just fine as well. Like this one is tiling, I guess, because they're both like pretty much flat, right? But if you have something that looks like a photograph that has a lot of depth to it and it has a pattern like that, then it'll be more noticeable. And if it's something from nature and like more irregular like that, so yeah, you have to think about what you're using it for. If you're gonna just tile it like a few times in one direction, or if you want to tile it like this. Anyways, we can get started on making one. So we can sort of check how our texture's tiling in real time now with the Smart Objects function. So I'm just going to turn that off and turn this one back on. And I'm just going to right click on this. I'll just press V to get back to the move tool. And I'm going to go, hang on a second. Yeah, different menu will come up if you're clicking on the image versus the rest of the layer. So click on like the main part of the layer here and then go to convert to Smart Object. So you can see the layer looks different now. And then we want to edit it. So I guess you have to do it again. You have to click again on the main part of the layer. And then you'll go to edit contents. And now you have two files open, one where you can edit the content of the smart object and one where you will see the smart object update. So then you go to window arrange, because we want to arrange our interface to do this work. So you go to tile all vertically and go do it again. Sometimes you have to do it twice. And if you want to zoom in or out, you just go Control plus and minus. So I want to see what I'm doing, so I'm just going like Control minus a bit so I can see both of these. So over here, this is now a smart object, and this is how you're going to be able to check how your tiling is going as you work on it. So you can just hold Alt and you can copy and you can paste them around. Just hold Alt and drag with the left mouse button. And also by default, you're going to be able to snap them together. Okay, so if you look up close, you can see these seams here. And we're going to work on getting rid of those. And you can also see there's some things here that make it look obviously tiled, right? Like this light colored mark there, so we'll definitely work on that as well. We can also have one of these rotated. I'm just going to make this canvas bigger. We can have them rotated however we want. Let's put one there. And now over here on the image that we can actually edit, so whatever you do here, I'm not sure why my brush is lagging. You guys have great computers at school, so you're not going to have this problem. Yeah, I don't know why. Shouldn't be. This computer is not bad, so usually it doesn't, but we won't worry about that right now. So if I go save, you can see what I do here. It's going to update here. So we can, I don't really need to do that, but yeah, you can see like how this is going to give us an idea if our work on the seamless texture is actually going in the right direction. So we can get the offset feature going. It's already offsetting as much as we want, like 1024, because it's 2048 size and 1024 is half. And if you're looking up how to do this online, you're going to find people mostly using the clone stamp tool. And I will go through the clone stamp tool and its family of tools, because there's like 4 tools actually. They're very similar and kind of all based on the clone stamp tool, which I believe is the oldest. But all those tools, they are going to make little copies of information that's in the file and sort of like blend and paste it around. And that's not the best way to work, actually. The best way to work is with another photograph, as I was mentioning, because I got you to bring in a second photograph, and then to take some completely different information from that photograph and use that, like use a mask to mask that in to cover up your seam. That will give a better result because you're bringing unique information in, and then there's less chance that people are going to notice that there's these little copies in here, and it's going to look more real, right? If you have brand new information you're bringing in there. So it's just like more professional. It's a more professional way to work. So I am going to bring in the other file. I'm just going to drag and drop onto here with the other file, I think, so that I have another layer with a different photo to steal from. Or I can actually, in this file we didn't use the whole thing, like there's also, I can't see it now. There was this other, let's see, can you see it now? Oh yeah, you can't see it because I have the tiles all spread out, right? So I'm just gonna like use one of these so I can see it. Yeah, so you can see there's some extra space actually that was removed here, and that might be a good area to work from. We can, instead of me bringing in another file, I mean there's plenty of information there that I can take. So I'm just going to leave this at normal now instead of having the fixed ratio for this marquee, and I'm just going to select some of this extra information here. Bring this in. So I'll just copy some of that, and I'm going to turn it off difference now. I'll just put it back to normal, and I'll just go back to the move tool. Why am I not? Oh. Sometimes the hotkey, if it doesn't work, then just go grab the tool and your hotkey should be working. So I'll just drag and drop this over here. So there's a bit of photo texture information, unique information for us to work with. And I'll also grab the other side of it as well. Turn it back to normal again for the blending mode. Have no need for that other blending mode. And again, I have to grab the tool over here. Okay, so I'll just turn these off. I don't need to have those on now. And now, so we've got all this extra texture information to work with. So now we can sort of, we can use a mask and sort of think about where a good, oh, we want to just leave this layer alone. I'm just going to use this one for now to try to like cover up some of the seam with part of it. So I can just think about Where's a good piece to sort of cover up? This looks like a good piece right here. So I'm just going to go like this. Like, I have the lasso tool selected. That's L. If you press the hotkey L, you go into that tool, and then you can just use your pen and like draw a marquee around it, and then go down here and click mask, and it's going to mask everything else away. And then you can move this over where you want it. So let's say I want to put this right here maybe. I'll just zoom out a little bit and see if this is a good spot for this. Looks kind of similar to what was there, right? So yeah, I'll go like that. And now I'm going to use a hard edge brush, because when you have, there's quite a few hard edges in this, and if you're like working on rocks or brick wall or something, there's a lot of hard edges in the photograph, and you don't want to use like a kind of soft sort of blendy brush. So if you want to press B, that'll bring you back to brush. And yeah, you probably want to use a harder brush. And I have in the student references for you today a lot of texture brushes, and I'll be using these texture brushes. So if you want to load those, they'll show up in their own little folder here if you load them. So just go to import brushes, and you should have copied what's in the student references folder to your own drive on your computer. So just go import brushes, and then you can look for them, and they look like this, right? So just go to the texturing brushes and go to load, and then they'll come in, and you'll have a folder like this, and you can open it up, and there's a lot of different brushes. So this is what I mean by a soft stroke, soft brush, and this is a harder brush. This one up here I have is a harder brush too, but it still sort of fades out on the end, right? And that, if there are marks in here from that might be too noticeable. So maybe you want to use like this one. It has some texture to it, but the edge is hard. This one too. It's like the edges are actually hard, right? But there's texture. So you might want to use, this is a good one, this Bits Foliage one. This is a good one to clean up the edges. So you might want to use this one, or that one, or this one. You can go through them and like find the ones with hard edges. Like, they all have purposes for texturing, but there's lots of hard edges in here or on rock, so that's what you want to work with. So I think I picked what did I pick here? Yeah, I picked this foliage one. So I want to make sure, I pressed X so that I could make sure I'm painting in black. And I'm just going to check what my brush stroke looks like here. I'm just going to paint in red on another layer just to or maybe, yeah, I'll paint in red because it'll be really noticeable. Let's see what that brush looks like. Okay, well, there are some parts of this that are blurred, so it might not be. What does this one look like? Let's look at this one. I might actually just stick to this regular one for now. See what this one looks like. This one looks a little bit similar to that pattern there, and the edges are pretty hard, so maybe I'll use this one. And now I'm going to go back to black so I can paint on the mask, and I'm just going to paint out the extra edges here. I'm going to sort of cut it off where it looks right. And if you press X, you can always, and you turn it back to white. Let's make sure this is a pure white. Yes, it is. Then you can add back in, so you can paint back and forth until you get the edges how you want them. And the idea is to make it look believable, like a believable photograph that doesn't have any seams on it. Sometimes it's kind of hard to even tell where they are, so you need to turn it off and on to check it. You might want to zoom out, and if you press save, then you'll start to see the result over here. Okay, so I think you get the idea probably of how to get rid of texture seams, like using this masking method. And then, you know, you keep bringing pieces in and like don't just have it sort of have new masked pieces like over top of like kind of patching over the seams like at the same width, like, you know, have offset them, like put one kind of up here and one down here to mix it up a bit, right? Okay, so I'm just going to, I like that, you know, I'm going to flatten that, I guess, like into the bottom here. So Control E is what you will press if you want to flatten something, and that's just going to make that like all one layer. So I'll just save it one more time.